Continuing with that focus, therefore, Ashok Gehlot squarely blaming the BJP for an agenda to stir communal clashes across the country. Who then is to blame? Has the Gehlot government failed to check the unrest? Is there a bid to disrupt harmony? Are the clashes with an eye on assembly elections next year? Gaurav Bhatia, the BJP's evergreen spokesperson, Supriya Shrinet of the Congress joining me. Gaurav Bhatia, very serious charges made by Ashok Gehlot saying the BJP is behind these riots, claiming that that the BJP is fanning rumours, BJP workers removed Islamic flags, replaced them with saffron flags. The BJP wants to stir a communal divide ahead of election next year. Your response, sir?
Ashok Gehlot ji can make any charges he wants to, Rajdeep. The harsh reality staring at him is the fact that law and order in Rajasthan has been a casualty. And these are my questions for him. I know he's left your show now. But if I was an anchor, I would have asked him one thing. Matloob Ahmed, the main accused of the Karoli riots, even after a month has not been apprehended. Why has he not been arrested? Is it because he's a Muslim? My second question to him would have been, Asif Ansari, another accused of a communal riot, was invited to an iftar party hosted by the CM himself. This would have been a very relevant question. My third question to him would have been that when the Supreme Court and the High Courts have been directing removal of loudspeakers from all places, irrespective of the religion, and Yogi Adityanath ji showing how rule of law can prevail over radicalism, removes 54,000 speakers. I have this news for your perusal. Just 3 days back in Jaipur, not only the roads were illegally blocked for namaz, but 18 loudspeakers were installed rather than removing them. My fourth question would be that when maximum number of rapes, 2019 NCRB data says 5,997 in Rajasthan, unemployment at its peak at 25% compared to UP at 4% and Gujarat at 2%, petrol being most expensive in Shri Ganganagar, a city in Rajasthan. How is it that, he can make lame excuses, and what are the excuses? One, he said BJP is to be blamed. And I will say this with some responsibility. Say if a BJP person, which I deny, is involved. Law and order is a state subject. Read the constitution rather than reciting the Sonia Chalisa. And it is entry 1, schedule 7, list 2, state list. So you should have apprehended those people. You have not. Second, they say elections around the corner. Rajdeep, you tell me, 1.5 years still left for elections. Now they are already in election mode. They are blaming the election and they are saying we are doing it. And third, last but not the least, they are blaming Gajen Singh ji, the member of parliament, for being in his constituency, coming from a party whose national president Sonia Gandhi has not visited Raebareli in the last 2 years, even during the COVID pandemic. And I didn't know that visiting your own constituency was a crime. So such is the logic of Ashok Gehlot.
Okay.
Thank you, Rajdeep.
That was I am uninterrupted. I have given you. Maybe you should be
you are very kind.
Yeah,
very kind.
Maybe you should be an anchor in the future and ask all the questions that you wish to ask. But Supriya Shrinet,
I
just
just
a minute.
thought these came to my mind.
No, Supriya Shrinet, the fact is that law and order, the buck stops with the Chief Minister. Ashok Gehlot, through that interview, kept deflecting it on the centre. The fact is that he cannot escape responsibilities. Law and order is a state subject. You cannot say that the BJP is pursuing an agenda of divide and rule and therefore I have no responsibility. Virtually...
Rajdeep, with all due respect to you and your show and of course my fellow panelists, I hope I'll give him the same civility and courtesy that I offered to him in his 4.5-minute long Rashtra Ke Naam Sandesh. First things first, I think before I answer that question, I want to take a step back and say, whether it's Rajasthan, Karnataka, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, why is it that communal violence is erupting in these states? It did not erupt for all these years, but suddenly it's erupting. Why is it that these states have become fertile ground for communal violence, for communal hatred, for communal clashes? And there is only one answer that comes to anybody's mind. Forget about the fact that I'm representing the Congress party here. the fact that assembly elections are around the corner. The second question that I want to raise to your viewers to ponder over is, and I've been an anchor, so I think I can take a larger role and say, not that if I had been an anchor, but I will take up a larger role and say, who benefits from this communal hatred? Who benefits from this communal divide? Who is looking to leverage and gain out of that? That's the second point I would want to raise. The third point I would want to raise, and this is getting into the semantics of the place, Jaroli, that we are talking about. It is a custom there that whatever festival is being celebrated, कोई भी festival जो celebrate हो रहा है, चाहे वो महावीर जयंती हो, चाहे वो ईद हो, चाहे वो कोई और त्योहार हो, वहाँ पर उसी रंग के ध्वजों से वो पूरा चौराहा भर जाता है. It was on the 1st of March, महावीर जयंती, उससे भर गया, उसके पहले कुछ और था, उससे भर गया. I've got pictures, I can prove that. बालकुंड बिस्सा जी, जिनकी प्रतिमा पर ये सारा बवाल हो रहा था, वहां पर ईद के दिन उनको परमिशन दी गई थी, उन्होंने अपने झंडे लगाए. There were clashes, and I think after the clashes, the police and the administration together arrived at a very possible solution. That's all right. The only flag that will be hoisted there will be the Indian tricolor. Of course, the Indian tricolor is something that the BJP or its ideologue has no respect for, considering they never hoisted it for the first 53. 1 second, Rajdeep, let me finish. After that was done, how did violence erupt? And because he's chosen to name Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, I will name 3 more people. Gajendra Singh Rathore, a local BJP leader, Surikant Vyas, the MLA, and Jagat Narayan Jyoti. For the last 3 or 4 days, they were known to be inciting violence. I am only saying that one needs to ponder over the fact that why in Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Gujarat, and here communal violence is erupting, exactly the case as it was in UP and in Uttarakhand, and who gains out of it? That's the question.
Can I respond?
Okay, I will give, therefore, remember we've gone a little over because the Prime Minister was speaking in Denmark, so I have limited time. I will give Gaurav Bhatia one final intervention. Gaurav Bhatia, at some stage, while law and order is a state subject, the fact is, on the ground, we've seen BJP, VHP workers also involved. There are Muslim groups, Islamist groups on one side, and there are also the Bajrang Dal and VHP also that we've seen in state after state on the ground. So you've got this process of action, reaction, or... No, 1 minute, ma'am, now. Let him respond. So, Gaurav Bhatia, at some stage, someone has to say enough is enough. The Prime Minister is giving this big speech in Denmark. It hardly does the country's image good when on Eid we have these clashes in India. You can talk about harmony in Copenhagen, but across India, there isn't harmony. 1 minute, ma'am. Let him respond.
Rajdeep, first of all, this false bogey all the time that Prime Minister should speak, Prime Minister should take responsibility. I'm telling you, the day Prime Minister starts intervening, Congress, Mamata Banerjee will be the first parties who would say the federal structure has been violated. And I would only like to say there is an admission on your program. The Congress spokeswoman, she said that there were last 3-4 days, BJP leaders were trying to incite violence. So is she admitting that Ashok Gehlot is such a failure as a chief minister that he couldn't act for 3-4 days? Second, linking it to the elections. Rajdeep, you tell me there was violence even in West Bengal. But there are no elections in West Bengal. In the BJP-ruled state, be it Madhya Pradesh or Gujarat, when we taught a lesson to all these criminals and bulldozer was used, Ashok Gehlot himself came out and he said, no, don't do that. ये गलत है, धर्म को आप जो है खतरे में डाल रहे हैं. All that I want to say is, if you can't rule a state, the electorate of Rajasthan will teach you a lesson, and I'm sure BJP will form the government there. We will not blame them. Rather, we will improve the law and order situation there.
Okay, I'm going to give...
Can I make a final intervention?
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
For someone who practices law in the highest court in this country, the fact that you believe bulldozer is a substitute for law and order...
There is a law for bulldozer, ma'am. I don't wish to interrupt you. But, okay.
No, don't interrupt. No, don't interrupt. Gaurav Bhatia, please don't interrupt.
No,
not fair.
Not fair.
No, Gaurav Bhatia, you can't intervene.
On national television.
I will only...
There is a law in Madhya Pradesh. Are you aware, Rajdeep?
It's my turn.
Are you aware, Rajdeep?
No, you can't shout her down. Gaurav, you cannot shout her down.
My name is Supriya.
I'm not shouting
My
it
name
out.
is Supriya.
Yeah.
He's spreading
and I'm the
falsehood just
Congress
like Rahul
spokesperson.
Yeah,
Gandhi.
ma'am, tell...
Please keep your mouth shut.
Yes.
It's
No,
my
no.
turn to speak.
Ma'am.
Be civil, be kind. 1 second.
30 seconds.
Rajaram Gurjar, the husband of Jaipur's BJP mayor,
Why don't
has
you
been
arrest
found
him
to
if
be
you
one
think
of the
he's an
prime
accused?
suspects of the Karauli violence. Does he have anything
He's
to
arguing
say on
against
that? He's
herself.
behind bars on that. Rajaram Gurjar, one of your own. Do you have a word
Matlub
to
Ahmed?
say on that? That's
Okay.
Asif
conspiracy. Keep shut. Don't give me names after names.
I want to leave it. I want to leave it there.
Thank
Today
you.
is an
Thank you, Rajdeep.
today.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it, producer. The fact is that we are in a situation where, unfortunately, we find the communal flames erupting in different parts of the country. Remember, today is Eid. It's also Akshay Tritiya, and the fact is that this is a country where harmony needs to prevail over hate of any kind.